Hello and welcome to this episode of Tales from Beyond the Grade. I'm Jedi Teacher Man, and today we are joined again by Professor Ada Sandoval from Vancouver Community College in Vancouver, BC. And a little bit different today because Professor Sandoval has got some questions for me, so I believe, on a topic that she wanted to extend from one of our previous podcasts. So, Ada, would you like to go ahead and tell us what's on your mind?
Correct. In one of our previous podcasts, we were talking about frustration. However, something that I believe I still have some questions about, and that I am sure people are going to be interested in, hearing this from you, is discomfort. And exactly, just like you said, we were talking about this topic of discomfort. And something that I would like to know is, how does frustration show up in your classroom? How do you see this frustration in your everyday, in your experiences as a math teacher with your fifth graders?
Couple of things. Thank you for bringing it up because we were at a PTA event the other evening, and a parent was talking to me about exactly the same thing, which also happened to be on the evening of a day when I'd experienced something, that was related to frustration. And the second thing I want to address is that it isn't in math, it's everywhere, right? We all get frustrated. If we have character strengths, then frustration is a character challenge, I would say, that we need to adopt our strengths or apply our strengths to deal with. So let me think where to start. So the conversation with the parent, let's start with that one. And we were just talking about, as parents do, it's great. And that's a great thing about having connections with family partnerships and connections with the community in school. They're massively important. They're also the reason for this particular podcast channel, to help parents, right? That's why we're here. And this father, he just started talking about how we have the curriculum, we have the learning targets, we have our pacing guide, we have all these things that kids go to school to do. And he wanted some help with, okay, how can we help kids when they get frustrated? But also, the main thing he came up with was, are we giving kids the opportunity to become frustrated? Which I thought was really fascinating, right? It's like, and I thought, well, I've seen this a lot, and I've probably been guilty of it. We want to save the kids from that feeling, right?
Of course.
So, because there isn't a common core standard for dealing with frustration. There isn't a common core standard for reducing anxiety. But then anxiety is a serious thing.
It is.
But are we trying to avoid situations that may create minor anxiety, minor frustration? Because if we are, then how are kids ever going to learn to deal with it?
Right.
And how are they ever going to learn the coping mechanisms? And coping is an interesting word, because coping means that you just put up with it. But I feel with frustration, you can actually take steps, as we all have done. Take a breath, count to 10, realize that time is often our friend, and that things will pass. And whatever I'm worried about today, what will I be worried about tomorrow? Or as the classic saying go, I always say the classic saying, to me they're classic sayings because they've been around a long time. But something that I really believe in is, take a moment to think, is what I'm getting so worked up about now, will I even remember this in 3 weeks' time?
Oh, wow. I think even adult, even we adults, I think I'm going to take notes.
Yeah, that is an adult strategy. But with kids, it's like dog lives, right? For adults and kids. A day feels like 3 weeks for a kid. When you say something about tomorrow, a lot of kids will say, I don't care. Because they can't even see that far ahead. Yet tomorrow comes, and the punitive thing was, okay, you're going to miss recess tomorrow. I don't care. It doesn't affect me in the here and now. And the here and now, our here and now is 2024 and possibly next year, right? Looking at the foreseeable future. Their foreseeable future is 3:40, I'm out of here and home, and then I'll be playing games with my friends, and I don't care what happens beyond that. And I'm not saying for all kids, but that's definitely a mentality that's going on. So, getting back to this, giving kids opportunity to be frustrated, I often feel that we're saving them from the experience of being frustrated, and therefore they're not experiencing it enough to. And this could sound a little bit sadist, right? It could be sound a bit like, "Yeah, I want to give you painful situations so you feel pain." No, I want to give you situations that could be painful, but you find ways to avert that, to avoid the pain or to ride with the punch, right? It's like
Right,
learning how to
right,
block a punch, right? If someone's going to punch you, they're going to punch you, and life is going to punch you, right? So if someone's going to punch you, then let's learn how to either slip the punch, which means avoid it altogether, and the punch still happens, you still had to
right.
deal with it, or in the very worst scenario, that what we call riding a punch, where it still makes contact, but you go with it, so you're taking the sting out of the shot. And that's really what we want to do, right? We want to take the
Right.
sting out of the experiences. And I think, and this is what I said to the parent at the time, I said, I do believe sometimes we're trying to teach kids to swim without getting them wet,
Ooh, I love
right?
that.
And it's difficult, yeah? So if a situation comes where you've got to get out of the river because you fell in, you're not going to know how to do it because you've never got wet in the first place.
And you know what? Sorry.
No, carry on. No, you should do more of that. Please do shut me up because I will go like a train forever. So carry on.
Okay. It is so interesting what you're saying because I also understand that parents want to, of course, we love our kids, right? And we want to try to avoid for kids to suffer or to live any pain that we may have been through, right? During our own childhood and our own
Right.
going to
Yeah.
school and etc. And I completely understand that. And I wonder though, also like a teacher, and it occurred to me right now when you were just sharing that, how can we help our children deal with frustrating situations in order to actually for them to learn and develop, these skills about how to not only how to respond to the frustration but also how to deal with their own emotions. And I remember in one of our previous podcasts I mentioned that I do tell my students, if we're going to fail, we're going to fail here in our classroom, which is a safe environment. So I'm going to take that same analogy and that same example to the home, to our house, to our
Yeah.
family environment, in which if we tell our children, I know this is going to be probably a difficult situation to deal with, but guess what? You're not going to be alone. I'm right here with you. The whole family is here with you. And we're going to deal with this together. And we're going to learn how to, we're going to do this together. And you're safe. And it's going to be okay. And we're going to be okay at the end. And I think that is very important for parents to understand that in this, maybe teaching them or helping them how to help their kids deal with this frustration is letting also the children know that they're going to be safe and I'm
Yeah.
here to care for you. You're not alone, right?
Right. Right. Well, the interesting thing about you bringing this topic up was all I've spoken about right now was a parent's perspective.
Right.
The parent wanted to know, is there more, yes, are we doing it in school? But I think he also wanted to know, like, is it okay for me to be doing this at home? We live in our world in 2024 is different than when I was in high school in 1984, right? No George Orwell reference there whatsoever. That's just 40 years ago. And
Right.
which I can't believe it's 40 years ago, but it is. It's 40 years ago. I think it's 20 years ago, but it's not. It's 40 years ago. But there was a different, and I spoke about this before, that corporal punishment was a thing, as in I think that's a different term in the US, I think. But in the UK, corporal punishment was you got the cane or you got the strap or the slipper or whatever. You got struck by an adult at school, and that would never happen today. And we're protecting our kids from that physical abuse, if you like.
Completely, yeah, I
But
agree. Yeah,
are we also thinking that we're protecting them from emotional experiences, when at the same time we're trying to develop emotional strength, character strengths, develop emotional intelligence? And I know you and I spoke a lot about this, and it's a passion of ours because it's super cool, right? Emotional intelligence gets us through the day, and it gets us through projects, and it gets us through periods of our life. So we have those things as well. And I just think I think the pendulum, my personal opinion, coming from, I like to say I've taught in 3 different time zones. So having lived and grown up and taught in the UK and in England, having spent time in New York and now
right.
time in the Seattle area, I do think that the pendulum has swung through the eras, not necessarily
Mm,
geographically or even politically. I think the pendulum has swung um, with all the right intentions, of, well, this wasn't working very well, so let's change it and see if this works.
right.
Whereas now, what we're doing now isn't working very well. If we look at the data, right, it's not working very well. So we just got to keep tweaking. And I think there's been too many times through history and education where that wasn't working. Let's scrap it. Let's try this. Well, now we've got experience of looking at all different things.
Correct.
And can we synergize? Can we synthesize some of those things and get more of a balance?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm,
and protecting children from experiences, as you say, in safe environments.
exactly.
I was speaking to a preschool teacher yesterday about this topic, and she was so proud because she'd had a similar situation with a parent of a 4-year-old, I think, um, they throw a tantrum,
Oh, I see.
and how do I stop them with the tantrum? And she says, you don't. You just say, okay, well, go on, see where that gets you. And it was like, wow, so that's really early on. So you're developing this wiring really, really early on that, and I think we all did it. I threw tantrums when I was a kid. My younger brother, forget about it, he was the world's best. He was the world's best at it. And my mom, back in the day, there wasn't any like reaction to it. That was the thing. We didn't react. My mum, dad did not react. They didn't save. They just let it run its course. And then, okay, what is it you want?
Exactly.
Right?
Let's
How
talk
do you
about
think?
it.
What's the best way to get it? And
Exactly.
here are some options. You don't have to go through all. How did it feel going through all of that? Wasn't good. Why put yourself through all of that emotional turmoil when it's not going to get you what you want?
But you know what? I have to share something. I think parents nowadays, and I understand them and I relate to them very easily. We are so tired. We are
Hmm.
so busy. We have
Yeah.
so many things on our plate, and I'm not excusing them or like trying to make excuses, but I think you just said something so important that even after a tantrum, yeah, of course, let it happen. But this is the little difference. If you let it happen year after year after year after year, which without helping your kid understanding and learning from this experience, then what happens, and we see this in our schools, right, as teachers, is that then we have children that do not understand that, and I'm going to talk a little bit about behavior. They give for granted that this is behavior that is acceptable. Why? Well, because at home they keep it's I'm allowed to do this with no consequences.
Mm,
Therefore, when I come to school and I do the same thing that I do at home and they give me consequences, it doesn't make sense to me. But I believe parents sometimes we don't understand that this protecting my kid, from learning from this frustrating experience is actually going to make it more challenging for him when he grows up and he becomes part of society, and he tries to develop these social skills. It's going to be even more challenging. Instead of making it easier for him, we're going to make it more challenging for our kids when they actually have to face real life without us parents, right?
Correct. What you've said is 100% correct in the cases that happen, right? In the cases that occur where things at home aren't going unquestioned, if you like, and there isn't a consequence, whatever that
All
may
right.
be.
Yeah.
I agree. That's difficult, especially if, Joey comes into school and gives me, well, I don't care. Well, I'm going to call your dad. Yeah, see what he does. But how many of those really happen?
Mm,
And I've said this a
mm,
lot. And there is an episode that I've done about parent conferences, which I
mm.
recommend all parents listen to. We've got parent conferences coming up in a couple of weeks. I've had 20 years of parent conferences. That means I've had, 40 years of meeting with the parents for a whole day of all the students I teach that year. In middle school, that's 120 parents, it could be 150 parents over the course of 3 or 4 days.
Wow.
Now, so I've spoken to over 1,000 parents. Now, not one of those. That's a big sample. If we were doing research
Mm,
here, and I feel
mm,
like what we're doing, I feel I'm at the point in my career where every day is action research in some capacity,
mm.
right? It's street data. I'm not doing an official thing with surveys and whatnot, but you're taking in and you're seeing how many cases of this are there and how many cases of that, and is there a majority or whatever. So with a sample of 1,000 parents, I was going to say I could count on one hand the amount of parents that don't care about their children's behaviour. And the answer is actually I don't even need a hand to
Oh,
count the parents
wow.
that don't mention behaviour at parent conferences. They really care about their kids being respectful to the teacher, not messing around,
Oh,
not being
of
distracted. Are they
course.
paying attention? And even the parents who know their kid really well, it's like, I know they have a problem paying attention. They're still bothered by it. They still want to put it
I
right.
see.
Yeah, they're still concerned about it. So and I don't mean to catch you out here, but the cases that happen where consequences aren't happening at home, I don't believe are as many as some educators believe.
I see what you're saying. And I'm glad. I'm so happy you're sharing this because I think we may have some preconceptions, from what we read and I'm so happy that you have had these experiences with these wonderful parents.
Just to add on to what I was saying there about things happening at home and consequences, I think what's very important, and we did this in our district and it was so cool, when COVID came in and we went to remote learning, I was on a committee that sort of helped design what remote learning would look like.
Okay.
And it was a fabulous set of meetings that we had. And this thing was, considering no one knew how long we were going to be out and all that kind of
Right.
thing.
Right.
Um, just another thing I'm proud to work in the district I do, because the approach to this was, we're going to find a way to do this and we're going to do it well. And we're going to do it
Oh.
as well as we possibly can. It was great.
Oh.
And one of the things they did was, once we got the design of the day up of how this was all going to look different, and this was when we had those amazing words like synchronous and asynchronous, the ones we got bored of very quickly.
Yes.
If I hear asynchronous one more time, right? But what we had Billy, and here's what Billy's day will look like. He will get up, he will have his breakfast, and he will log into his laptop, and it was the first time, and I have to say, I haven't really seen it since, where we looked at school through the perspective of the kid and
I
what their day
know.
looks like. What does their experience look like at every turn and every angle? We know what
Wow.
our schedule looks like. So we look at a master schedule. All first grade are in core math to start the day. Then they'll go to recess. Then they'll have core ELA. Then they'll go to specialist. Then they'll have lunch. Then they'll come back. And science and social studies, you know, we can see it down on paper, but we never actually try and see it through the eyes of the student. And when we were having lots of conversation, we do teach as well, you know, as teachers, but we were having another conversation about some kids just come to school, and that if they're living out of district. So, for example, they started the school year in the district. They're at their school for their area that they live in, and then they move out of district. They can stay at the school they're at, and rightly so, because you don't want to disrupt that. But now, the new friends that they've made, say they go and live in an apartment complex, they're going to make new friends at the apartment complex. They're going to come to school with kids who are their friends, but they don't see after school.
I see what
So
you're saying.
when are they going to socialize with those
Oh, of
kids? It's going to
course,
be
of
in school.
course.
It's going to be at the time. It's like, well, I get my transportation to school, and this is the only time Joey gets to see
His
Jimmy,
friends,
Carlo,
yeah,
and right.
yeah.
And so is that kid kid's mentality, playful mentality, going to sit down and say, right, oh my word, I'm so excited of sitting in silence and doing math and reading all day while my best friends who I've known for 4 years are here, but I'm not going to see again today. There's obviously going to be
Oh,
some social excitement, right? There's obviously
of
going to be some,
course.
right? And part of that is, well, too bad, Joey. You've still got to, there is an element of you've still got to be firm and say, no, stop doing the old bit. It's like you've still got to get your math done. Our school give 2 recesses a day
Okay.
and a 25-minute lunchtime. So
Wow.
there's time and place, right? There's a time and place. Also, they have about half an hour. If you get in on time, if you get in when the doors open, you have about a half an hour time to chat and, get your wiggles out in the morning as well,
Of
right? So
course.
we're giving you about 2 hours of the day. No, let's be realistic, but let's say 90 minutes of the day
All right.
to,
Socialize.
so it isn't just one block of time. However, that doesn't mean we can't empathize with the situation that school is a very social place. Just
Of
like going
course.
to a sports game, we don't go to an NFL game, and when the Seahawks kick off, everyone goes, right, now be quiet, 3, 2, 1. 1, 2, 3,
Everyone,
eyes on me.
silence. Silence.
Exactly. Pete Carroll isn't there going like, shh, at the back, stop talking. Are you on your phone? It's a social play, right? It's social. The theatre, the origins of theatre. It wasn't just the art, the artistic aspect, but it was a place to go and socialize, and you go and watch the
Right.
show and you socialize. So school has got to have that piece, that social piece, and it certainly does, because we have social and emotional learning.
Of course.
But again, we just got to realize that kids are kids, right? It's hard, but we do have to teach them.
So, another question that I have for you, Mr. Jenkins, is then kids and frustration, are they really learning how to deal with frustration nowadays? What can we do as teachers, but also what can we teachers tell parents how to help their kids deal with frustration?
So my go-to here is always going to be, okay, let's look at our character strengths, and you and I have got a lot in common when it comes to this. So
Correct.
viacharacter.org is fascinating work, and the work originally started with 2 gentlemen called Martin Seligman and Christopher Peterson. There's 2 episodes I've done about how to teach your children character strengths at home, so please check those out. However, it's really nice to look at a particular situation and say, okay, which character strength am I going to draw on for this, right? So I really believe gratitude is a strange one to apply to this, but I'll explain. I'm going to give a scenario in a moment of why gratitude is something to teach. And when I say teach, don't sit down at home and say, right, Joey, today we're going to talk about gratitude. Gratitude is being grateful for everything and thankful for the things you have and realizing how lucky you are to have those things, and some other people won't. Okay, are we done? That's it, right? when I mean constantly talk about, make it a daily, refer to it daily, make it a daily reference
Of
about
course, of
gratitude.
course.
Okay, here's a situation. So 3 fifth grade classes, all out at recess. They know the rules at recess. They know what to do. They know how to line up at the beginning. They go and play. They know the rules of, that you don't go up the slide and you go down the slide, all the things. And then when the whistle goes, we line up quietly at the end. And one particular class does a great job of this all the time.
Okay.
Another class is pretty much okay, and half the class, it's like not fair to just label the whole group, right?
Right,
Individuals
right.
within the group do a good job. So individuals within the group are doing a good job. And another class, for some reason, the one or two that haven't quite grasped it yet seem to infect the others, and that just perpetuates chaos. So one of our paras actually said, right, class 1, you're doing great. We're giving you extra recess this afternoon
All
because you
right.
just do it,
Yeah.
Class 2, this group, you really need to keep working on it. But this group, so you can come out with this other class and you can get extra recess.
Oh, wow.
This isn't exactly factual. I'm actually fabricating a little bit of it, but it's based on a couple of different situations I've seen. So I'm
Right,
giving this as an
right.
example. So we go back to class, and I've got the class that didn't get recess at all. Because day after day after day, they're being told what to do. They're not doing it. They're not stepping up to. So the faces on the students were unteachable. They were actually kind of
Oh.
hard to look at because it was almost. I was like,
Were they angry?
yeah, because they hadn't got what these other kids had got.
Well,
But they hadn't done anything. Yeah, you're ahead of me, right? Go on. What are you thinking?
no, what I'm thinking is they're angry because the other kids got the extra recess, but did they think they also were entitled to an extra recess just because? I don't know. I'm trying to understand.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's the way well, it's not fair. It's
Oh,
like it's absolutely fair.
oh, it's
You
not
get
fair.
you reap what you sow. You're not meeting expectations. You ignore the whistle. You carry on playing. Over the course of the last month, that class had probably accumulated 2 extra recesses just in the extra time that they continued playing after the whistle, if you like. Now I know we're getting into pedantic things, right? Oh well, an extra minute here, an extra minute there. Well, actually, yeah. If every class in the school is an extra minute over time, that's 17 minutes somewhere that we've lost. And that's a big chunk of time in a system, right? If the whole school had to sit and wait 17 minutes and do nothing because everything was behind schedule. So it doesn't matter. And just the actual doing what you're told when you're supposed to be doing it is a life skill, right? So the gratitude is you get recess every day and you choose not to step up and follow the rules every day. But you should be grateful for the fact you got recess in the first place. The fact they
I
got extra,
see.
the fact that they just did everything without having to be told or asked any extra, and they got recognised and acknowledged for it, you just be grateful for what you got. The fact of the matter is, the way this class had been behaved, I'm surprised they didn't have, in some other schools or some other situations, they may have had recess taken away from them because
That's
they weren't
exactly
doing a
what I
great
was
job,
going to
right?
say. That would have happened back then in my days, right?
Absolutely. Be grateful that you've actually got recess in the first place today because some of you haven't really earned it. But it's all about what I haven't got. It's all about the other guy got more. The other person got more. They got more than me. I didn't get this. I didn't get, and it's a little bit victim mentality.
Oh, of course. Of
And
course.
if you've got gratitude in this world and you really appreciate the things you do have, and you can step back and say, you know what? And I know I'm speaking the truth here because while I was having this conversation with them, which wasn't verbatim to what I'm saying now, it was a very 5th grade friendly conversation. Not sure they thought it was friendly, but it was 5th grade appropriate. The amount of kids in the class that were just nodding along with me and smiling, they weren't upset because they knew. They got
knew,
it.
of course.
They
Of
got it,
course.
right?
But just a few of them didn't get it, right?
But the ones that didn't get it was, and I had a kid, he's up and he's slammed his desk and he's walked out of the, it was like,
Oh, wow.
the more I tried to teach the conversation, the more frustrated he got, which was really interesting. So that may be a case of, was he just thrown everything when he was throwing tantrums as a 4-year-old, and he didn't actually
Oh, I
he didn't
see.
roll out of the tantrum, right? I don't
Mm,
know. I
mm,
don't know. And this is a while ago, right? This
mm.
is a while ago. So, and it's just really interesting that you've got a class of kids who come to the same school, have the same teachers, have the same schedule, the same routines, get the same messages, are living in the same philosophy. And yet some kids get things like, yeah, absolutely no problem. I'm okay.
I
I
see.
didn't deserve it anyway. So the other, when you tie gratitude in with humility and being humble enough to say, it's like being a good loser, right? No one
Right.
wants to lose. No one wants to lose, but you
Of
can
course not.
accept when you were played off the park because the other team were just brilliant, or you made the mistakes that lost the game. You just have to own up and say,
Yeah.
it really.
And that's life. That is life.
Right, but we have to teach. Part of being at this age level is teaching them life, right? Teaching them how to do life,
Right. Right. It
and we're
is.
teaching them how to do life well and happily. And as Martin Seligman says, not happyology, not some kind of, this is all great and this is all fun. Real serious, being content and being okay with things. So when things don't go well, absolutely, it stings. But like we said before, you can roll with the punch a little bit. And if you get hit really hard, you can at least get up, brush yourself down and say, okay, what's a different way that I can approach this?
Well, Mr. Jenkins, I would like to thank you because I believe we have talked about very interesting topics. Frustration is indeed not a very, easy topic to talk about. It is hard for us, for teachers, for parents, of course. And I just would like to thank you about you sharing all those stories. I believe stories help us understand how to deal with this situation in a better, easier way. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
No, of course. And thank you again. And thank you for bringing this up because it's a really important topic and I'm sure we're going to touch on it again. And I just do want to underline that when I'm giving examples and when I am doing it all with a positive, affirmative approach, that I really we need to know that there are issues that our kids are working with and dealing with. And that this is all about, there's no one's to blame. No one's to blame for any of this. Life is life, right? We're put on this life. We're a living, we're part of the animal kingdom. We kind of sometimes feel in a ungrateful way that, or in a less humble way that we are the top of the food chain.
Right.
Until you come face to face with a grizzly bear, and then you realize, no, you're not. But we feel that we have this power here, and
Right.
there's a sense of entitlement maybe that we should not have to deal with problems, but we do. And we have
We
to find
do.
ways to deal with these problems, and
Right.
highlighting things like frustration and all of the topics that we cover on this podcast. They're covered because they're things that we have to help our young ones work with and address.
Right.
So
Right.
thank you for bringing this up because it's a fascinating topic. Okay,
It is.
great. Well,
It is.
I hope I see you soon. And
Yes.
that's all. That's all for this episode of the Tales from Beyond the Grade. And we look forward to seeing you soon. And as always, may the force of learning be with you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Tales from Beyond the Grade podcast with me, Jedi Teacher Man. Please hit the like button and subscribe to this podcast channel. You can also follow me at Jedi Teacher Man on Instagram, subscribe to Jedi Teacher Man on YouTube, and for us TikTokers out there, follow Beyond the Grade podcast. Thank you so much, and I look forward to you tuning in again very soon.